A family fortune, the glittering halls of New York's elite, and a man who got away with murder, or did he? What if I told you that for decades, a billionaire heir was suspected of murdering multiple people, and still walked free? Tonight, we're diving into the twisted life of Robert Durst, a man whose crimes would shock even the most hardened investigators. In the next few minutes, you're about to witness a true crime story that will challenge everything you thought you knew about justice, family secrets, and a life built on lies. Robert Durst's story is full of hidden motivations, chilling betrayals, and shocking twists. As we unfold the dark layers of his life, we'll follow the trail of evidence, meet those who tried to bring him to justice, and uncover the truth that has been buried for decades. Get ready, because this story is far from ordinary. It's a journey full of shocking revelations, investigative drama, and twists that will have you questioning everything. From the dark beginnings of Robert Durst's rise to power to a moment so chilling, it will leave you speechless. You won't want to miss a step. At its core, Robert Durst's story is about betrayal, family loyalty, and the lengths people will go to protect their darkest secrets. This is a story that could happen to anyone, with consequences so devastating, you'll wonder, how far would you go to cover up the truth? Born into wealth, Robert Durst grew up in a family that defined New York's elite. His father, Seymour Durst, was a powerful real estate mogul who built an empire of skyscrapers, luxury apartments, and untold riches. The Durst organization controlled billions in assets, but behind the success was a family consumed by power struggles, cold ambition, and deep dysfunction. Robert, the eldest son, was expected to follow in his father's footsteps, but from an early age, he resisted the role that had been laid out for him. His father favored his younger brother, Douglas, setting the stage for a lifelong rivalry filled with resentment and distrust. Robert's childhood was marked by trauma. One of the most defining moments of his life occurred when he was just 7 years old. His mother, Bernice Herstein Durst, died under mysterious circumstances. She reportedly fell from the roof of their family mansion in Scarsdale, New York. Some accounts suggest that Seymour forced Robert to witness the aftermath, while others claim he actually saw her fall. Either way, the event haunted him for the rest of his life, shaping his detachment from others and his increasing instability. As he grew older, Robert struggled to fit into the family business. He attended elite schools, including Scarsdale High and later Lehigh University, where he studied economics. But despite his academic success, he showed little interest in following his father's path. Instead, he drifted toward a bohemian lifestyle, rejecting the high-powered corporate world that the Dursts dominated. After college, he briefly attended UCLA but dropped out, preferring the West Coast counterculture scene over boardrooms and financial meetings. By the 1970s, Robert had become estranged from his family. While his younger brother Douglas was groomed to take over the Durst organization, Robert distanced himself further, displaying increasingly erratic behavior. He moved to Vermont and opened a health food store called All Good Things, a seemingly normal venture that would later take on an eerie significance. His rebellion against the family legacy was more than just an act of independence, it was the first sign of a man who refused to be controlled and who, beneath the surface, harbored dark and dangerous impulses. In 1977, Robert Durst married Kathleen McCormick, a bright, ambitious woman pursuing a career in medicine. Kathleen, or Kathy, as she was known, came from a modest, hard-working background, far removed from the wealth and power of the Durst family. Despite their differences, the couple initially appeared happy, with Kathy adapting to the extravagant lifestyle that came with marrying into one of New York's most powerful real estate dynasties. However, beneath the surface, their relationship was far from perfect. As time passed, cracks in their marriage began to show. Robert's behavior grew more erratic and controlling. He isolated Kathy from friends and family, dictating where she could go and who she could see. He frequently belittled her, and their once romantic relationship became increasingly toxic. By the early 1980s, Kathy had confided in friends that Robert had become physically abusive. She later told her family and colleagues that she feared for her life, even going so far as to secretly seek legal advice about a divorce. On the night of January 31, 1982, Kathleen vanished without a trace. She had been spending the weekend at their home in South Salem, New York, and had reportedly attended a party at a friend's house before leaving to return home. The last confirmed sighting of Kathy was by a friend who recalled her being visibly upset and saying Robert was angry with her. Robert later claimed that he had put Kathy on a train back to their Manhattan apartment that night. However, she never showed up for medical school the next day, something completely out of character for her. As investigators began looking into her disappearance, they found troubling inconsistencies in Robert's story. He initially told police he had spoken to Kathy by phone after she arrived in Manhattan, but there was no evidence to confirm this. A doorman at their Manhattan apartment building later stated that he had seen someone enter the building that night, but he could not confirm that it was Kathy. Even more suspiciously, Robert waited several days before reporting her missing. Kathy's friends and family grew increasingly vocal, insisting that she would never have simply disappeared without contacting them. Despite their concerns and the growing suspicions surrounding Robert, the case stalled due to a lack of concrete evidence. With no body and no clear proof of foul play, authorities were left with more questions than answers. For nearly 2 decades, Kathy Durst's disappearance remained an unsolved mystery, one that would continue to haunt those who loved her and cast a dark shadow over Robert Durst's life. For nearly 2 decades, Kathleen Durst's disappearance remained a haunting mystery. Robert Durst moved on with his life, drifting between different cities and cutting ties with most of his family. But there was one person who remained fiercely loyal to him, Susan Berman. Susan was more than just a friend, she was Robert's confidant, someone who understood his deepest fears and darkest secrets. The daughter of a powerful Las Vegas mobster, she had grown up in a world where loyalty was everything, and she carried that same devotion into her friendship with Robert. When Kathleen vanished in 1982, Susan acted as his unofficial spokesperson, deflecting suspicion and even allegedly helping him craft his alibi. But nearly 2 decades later, the walls were closing in. By the year 2000, cold case investigators had begun revisiting Kathleen's disappearance, and new leads pointed to Robert as their prime suspect. They planned to speak with Susan, believing she knew more than she had ever let on. Shortly before she was scheduled to meet with investigators, Susan reached out to Robert. Then, just days later, she was dead. On December 23, 2000, Susan Berman was found in her Benedict Canyon home in Los Angeles. She had been executed with a single gunshot to the back of the head, a method eerily similar to mob-style killings. There was no sign of forced entry, no stolen valuables, nothing to suggest a robbery. Investigators believed that Susan had willingly let her killer inside, unaware of the danger she was in. Then, a chilling piece of evidence surfaced. Investigators received an anonymous letter alerting them to a cadaver at Susan's home, with the word Beverly misspelled as Beverly. This peculiar detail would become a key piece of evidence years later. At the time, however, there was not enough to link Robert directly to the crime, and no charges were filed. Robert's behavior after Susan's murder raised even more suspicion. He abruptly went into hiding, adopting disguises and living under false identities. He cut off contact with people from his past and drifted between states, evading attention. His erratic actions fueled speculation, but for years, the case remained unsolved. Then, in 2015, an unexpected breakthrough came from an unlikely source, an HBO documentary titled The Jinx: The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. The filmmakers uncovered a crucial piece of evidence, a letter Robert had written to Susan years earlier. The handwriting and the misspelling of Beverly were identical to the anonymous letter sent to police after her murder. The discovery was damning. The discovery of the Beverly misspelling and the shocking revelations from the Jinx had put Robert Durst back in the spotlight. But long before his arrest in 2015, Durst had already been at the center of another gruesome crime, one that had left law enforcement stunned. In 2001, just months after Susan Berman's murder, Robert fled to Galveston, Texas, assuming a new identity. Disguising himself as a mute woman named Dorothy Senair, he rented a cheap apartment and tried to disappear. It was here that he met Morris Black, an elderly drifter who lived in the same boarding house. The two developed an odd friendship, but as always with Robert Durst, it would end in bloodshed. Morris Black's dismembered body was discovered floating in Galveston Bay in September 2001. His severed limbs and torso were stuffed into garbage bags, carelessly dumped into the water. Investigators quickly traced the crime back to Robert, who had been seen acting strangely in the days leading up to the discovery. Inside his apartment, police found bloodstains, a bone saw, and evidence of a violent struggle. Robert was arrested, but in true Durst fashion, he had an explanation. He claimed he had killed Morris Black in self-defense after a struggle over a gun. However, his actions afterward painted a much darker picture. Instead of calling the police, Robert methodically dismembered the body, packed the remains into bags, and dumped them in the bay, actions not typical of an innocent man. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Robert's trial in 2003 took a shocking turn. His high-powered defense team argued that the dismemberment was a panicked reaction, not proof of premeditated murder. Incredibly, the jury bought the defense's argument, and in a stunning verdict, Robert Durst was acquitted of murder. Even though he admitted to cutting up Morris Black's body, the jury found reasonable doubt about whether the killing itself was intentional. Robert Durst had gotten away with murder once again. Despite evading justice for decades, Robert Durst's arrogance would ultimately lead to his downfall. In 2015, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, an HBO documentary, exposed the most damning piece of evidence yet. During the final episode, while in a bathroom with his microphone still on, Durst mumbled to himself, "What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course." The chilling statement sent shockwaves through the nation. This accidental confession, combined with newly uncovered evidence, including handwriting that matched the Beverly misspelling on the anonymous letter sent after Susan Behrman's murder, finally led authorities to take action. Just one day before The Jinx finale aired, Robert Durst was arrested in New Orleans on charges of first-degree murder for Susan Behrman's death. After years of delays, Robert Durst's trial for Susan Behrman's murder finally began in 2021. Prosecutors argued that Susan had been silenced because she knew too much about Kathleen Durst's disappearance. The evidence was overwhelming: the matching handwriting, his flight from justice, and, of course, his damning confession on The Jinx. In September 2021, after decades of suspicion, Robert Durst was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Susan Behrman. A month later, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice had finally caught up with Robert Durst, but his dark legacy remained. Though he was convicted of Susan Behrman's murder, Kathleen Durst's case had never been officially closed. Shortly after his conviction, New York authorities charged him with Kathleen's murder, but before he could stand trial, Robert Durst died in January 2022 at the age of 78. With his death, many unanswered questions died with him. Was Morris Black truly killed in self-defense? Would Durst have ever admitted to killing Kathleen? His decades-long ability to manipulate the legal system and evade accountability left a chilling reminder of how wealth and power can obstruct justice. Though Robert Durst is gone, the stories of Kathleen Durst, Susan Behrman, and Morris Black remain as the consequences of a man who nearly escaped justice. As Robert Durst's life and crimes came to an end, it left more than just a trail of unanswered questions. His case serves as a stark reminder of how wealth and power can sometimes distort the truth and delay justice. Yet, despite his years of manipulation and attempts to evade accountability, the truth about his crimes eventually came to light. His story leaves us grappling with the idea of whether justice can ever be truly fair when money and influence are involved. What do you think? Could Robert Durst have been stopped sooner? Was he truly a product of his family's wealth, or was there something deeper at play? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, in true crime, there's always more than meets the eye. If you found this story chilling and thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping true crime stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.